Okay, welcome everybody to this session, this bite-sized session on how you can grow yourself through communities and my experiences in this space. So over the next 15 minutes or so, we're going to start off by defining what a community is, or what we understand the community to be, talk a bit about why they're important, explore some of the different types of communities that there are, different ways you might want to engage with the community, and also learn about the different roles that people may play in a community. And throughout this, we're going to have a think about the different ways this will help us grow both personally and professionally. So first off, a little bit about me. So I'm a software engineer. I've got an interest in operational side of things, platforms. I'm currently working as a tech lead at Morgan Stanley in the API space. But one of the most important things in connecting with this talk is that I'm leader of the Manchester Java community. So that's been a theme of my life and experiences for the past 5 or 6 years. So let's get into the detail. So let's start by thinking a bit about what a community is. So across the world, there's hundreds, thousands of different types of communities, and there's different definitions of what a community might be as well. But for me, this definition resonates, and it's kind of a nice way of kind of describing them in fairly simple terms. That a community is the condition of sharing or having certain attitudes or interests in common. But it's not just attitudes and interests, it's things like beliefs, ideas, principles. And while I think common being a key word in the word community, I think it's also important to recognise that diversity is also very important for healthy communities. So why are communities important? So communities give us a sense of belonging. Having a group of people who've got shared interests, it's that feeling of kind of being a part of something is really valuable as people. And they also create a safe space where we can kind of communicate, engage with different people. Obviously, not every community is a safe space, but generally the good ones are, and those are the kind of communities hopefully we're all involved in and we try to seek out. So thinking about a few different types of communities that we might be involved in. So the most important one for me is your kind of the ones that start at home. So your family community, your friendship communities, they give you the foundations to be successful in, I suppose, life. If you've got a good solid base, you can go to work feeling confident that you can succeed and give you that sense of security to build on. So the communities I'm going to talk about, I suppose, kind of align with the tech industry. I imagine most of us are kind of engineers or working in software in some description because we're at a tech conference. So thinking about in our organisations where we work, we're probably a part of a team. So a team-based community, you're often aligned on business priorities. You've probably got shared ideas and principles about how you want to deliver change. You probably also disagree about a number of things, but the strong teams are good at negotiating, good at working together to kind of find common approaches to solving problems. And there's various ways you might do this. This is maybe through collaborating, like mentoring, coaching, pairing, mob or ensemble programming, that kind of thing. We'd work together. But also at a team level, you're often going to socialise to kind of enhance those bonds between people across a team. So stepping a bit outside of your immediate team and thinking about maybe the organisation you're working in, there's going to be a lot of different communities that play in that organisation. Maybe you're part of, maybe you give tech talks internally, you're a part of that community. Maybe you've got different guilds that are focused around different specific topics, such as maybe SRE, DevOps, maybe it's Java, that kind of thing. But also, I think an important thing about an organisation is having some communities that maybe don't necessarily align with the business goals, but the things that are important to people who come to work and make them feel like they can be their true selves. So if you've got a strong interest and care for the environment, sustainability communities will make a difference to you. Or the LGBT plus community would be very important to a lot of people to feel accepted in that organisation where they work. So stepping outside of your organisation, you'll often find different types of local tech communities. So this is a Java conference here at DevOps, so thinking about the different Java user groups across the world. But more locally, London Java community, that's a really important community that maybe some of you are already involved in. I'm from Manchester, so the Manchester Java community is something that I care a lot about and help to run and hopefully get people involved in. And these kind of communities, maybe there's tech talks, but also kind of social gatherings, there's networking opportunities. The LJC offers mentoring through their Meet a Mentor program, and that's kind of hugely valuable to a lot of people. So stepping a little bit wider and thinking about tech communities outside of maybe our localized areas, there's conferences such as this one, where people travel from kind of all over the country or even world to attend, hugely valuable. But also a type of conference for me that's been kind of pretty significant in my, I suppose, experiences and growth are unconferences. So if you've not been to an unconference, these are a bit different to your typical kind of DevOps style conference. There usually isn't a schedule. You turn up, you make the content on the fly, you kind of set the schedule as a group, and you talk about common interests and goals. But a hugely valuable way of meeting people and networking and chatting about things that you care about. And I suppose another key kind of community in the tech space is open source software. So things like, for example, Adoptium. So Adoptium project create the JDK binaries, and that is effectively an open source community that anyone can go and get involved in and start contributing to and helping out with. So if you get the opportunity to start kind of getting into that space, I'd highly recommend it. So we talked about a few different types of communities, different I suppose flavors of community at different levels, whether that's at home, whether it's in kind of conferences and wider tech. So let's now talk a bit about different ways and different roles you might play in a community. So for me, it starts with just turning up. Go to different events, find communities, get a feel for what they're about. If you're anything like me, you might be a bit of a lurker. When you first join a community, you'll kind of maybe sit in the background a bit quiet, maybe not talk to too many people, but you kind of getting a feel for if it aligns with your interests. And if it is the right fit for you, that's good, because you're going to start to grow a little bit and gain a sense of belonging. If it's not the right fit for you, that's fine as well, because you've grown an understanding of what it is that interests you, what it is you're actually looking for. You're fine-tuning your kind of choices, I suppose. And you'll also grow your experiences, some of which may just be related to stepping outside of your comfort zone. There's often that kind of I suppose, fear of maybe just going to an in-person event. So just turning up is a good growth experience to kind of move you on and kind of improve your experiences somewhat. So next, I would think about how we might more actively receive information. So maybe you've started to feel a bit more kind of sort of comfortable in a community. It's got the right feel for you, and starting to actively seek out the content and the interactions that are most relevant to you. So maybe you're starting to be a bit more selective of specific events and talks, or being more aware of people in the community that are of interest to you, have kind of aligned kind of maybe it's the kind of topics they specialize in. And this is obviously going to help us grow a little bit more, that more intentional approach to involvement. We're going to start receiving more relevant information that's going to align with the kind of angles that we want to grow in. We're making more valuable connections, building your personal network. You've raised your awareness of other people, and importantly, people start to raise their awareness of you. So next, we look to move on from maybe being more of a passive member of a community, and becoming even more active and thinking about how you might be able to give back to that community. So this can come in various forms. The simplest form is just to share your knowledge and experience with others through conversation. Maybe you'll kind of take that step further out of your comfort zone and decide to give a talk. And I think importantly, from someone who runs a community, having people who are keen to just offer their time and ideas and help, like volunteer as part of the group, is hugely valuable. And I think it's the responsibility for organisers of communities, people like myself, to remove barriers, encourage newcomers to get involved and find ways that we can make it accessible to everybody. And this is a huge kind of growth opportunity at that point. That's kind of the significance of becoming more actively involved. You'll start to grow in confidence. You gain more respect from other people in the community, and quite importantly, you gain a sense of achievement. Being able to give a talk or see your contribution to that community being realised is hugely valuable. And I think moving on from that, the most important one for me is paying it forward. So when you kind of grown into a community, you become more established. It's thinking about how you can, use your, I suppose, experiences and enable other people to kind of follow in your footsteps effectively. Making people feeling welcome, especially newcomers, and helping existing people in the community to kind of have a platform to be successful as well. And that might take the form of sponsoring somebody in terms of just giving them that encouragement to go and do a talk. It might be mentoring or coaching, that kind of thing. A nice side effect of helping others grow is that you will also grow. You'll develop more trust and respect of others in the community. And for me, it's like a force multiplier. You helping others helps yourself. They then help other people, and the communities just grow and become more successful. And ultimately, I've no real kind of hard evidence on this, but I truly believe that it starts to lead to more opportunities for yourself, both within that community and also outside of it. So, in summary, it's about getting out there, joining communities, taking your time to find the right ones that align with your interests, find communities that are inclusive, have good values, make you feel welcome. Look for opportunities to grow other people. Look for opportunities to just grow that community you're a part of. Maybe that's spreading the word, volunteering your time, or even doing a talk. Most communities should welcome and encourage this kind of engagement. Sometimes you just need to ask the organisers, like, how can I help? And I'm sure there's ways you can get involved and make a difference. Having a focus on not just being a consumer, but being a producer creates lots of opportunity for growth. Focusing on growing other people, as I've mentioned. And I think it's at this point you'll start to grow yourself to another level. So being involved in communities of different kinds and at different levels of engagement, stepping outside of your comfort zones, I truly believe will just help you grow both personally and professionally. Thank you. Okay. So any questions? We have got a few minutes. Yeah.
Just one bit, do you have any recommended resources for looking for open software projects that might interest you, or like sites you go to look for what events are coming up?
So I suppose with open source projects, I think I found it difficult when I was first starting to try to find things to get involved in. And I think it was because I was just looking for anything I could get involved in, where I'd find something that maybe they had a way to get on board, but actually I wasn't that interested in that thing maybe. And I think having thinking about what it is you care about first and foremost, and using that to direct yourself towards the projects that align with your interests is kind of really important, because I think often you'll be spending your free time. So having that motivation and that interest has to be a kind of a baseline. Like for me, I'm interested in Java and more kind of, I suppose, platform kind of work, and that's where Adoptium project kind of aligned with me. It was the Java ecosystem, and also I was able to get involved in helping them build their API, which supported people. So yeah, I think about what you care about, and then use that as a bit of a guide to find the projects out there that align with it. There was another part to that question.
Just kind of similar question, but for finding events.
Events. It is a tricky one actually, because the question was being able to find events. Meetup is somewhere that we use to publish our events, but I think discovery is always a challenge. But that's probably the main place where I would discover new events, and I suppose it's kind of changed a bit over COVID times. A lot more things are online, but I think in general, Meetup's probably the main place that I'm aware of. Cool, thanks. Hi.
Hi.
So what do you do with the introverts or the colleagues that kind of say, oh, I can read everything by myself online, there are platforms, self-learning platform, how do we compete with that?
Yeah, I feel like I'm an introvert myself, and it may be kind of difficult to see sometimes, but I'm totally aware that if I'm in a room with a lot of people, I'll often sit in the corner, and I think sometimes you just need somebody to, I mentioned it before, sponsor you. So by sponsoring, I mean somebody who's going to give you that encouragement and kind of we just need a push, I suppose, sometimes, somebody to kind of give us that nudge and take us outside of our comfort zone. And that could be as simple as just joining a conversation with other people in that community, or it could be standing up and giving a talk. But I think for introverts, making that step is really difficult. So having like myself being able to kind of help somebody in the community make that step and get more involved, we've just got to kind of, if I've got the kind of opportunity to help someone, you've got to kind of do that effectively. Yeah, it's tricky though.
It is.
Yeah, it's a fear, isn't it?
Is there an element of imposter syndrome in there? You know, where people, they're not so much introverted, but they feel like, who am I to go?
Yeah. I think especially so we're talking about imposter syndrome being a factor, and I think for me one thing I've totally had that where you're like, what do I know? And the way I've kind of, I suppose, managed that is always to kind of think about about things that are my experience, because I can't get my own experiences wrong. They're the facts of what I've done, and like I might try and talk about some technical topic which I kind of understand it but not fully, and that's where I'd be really kind of out of my comfort zone. But this kind of creates that bridge between this. Well, this is my experience. I've done this, and people can ask me questions about it, and hopefully I can kind of share more experiences. And it kind of takes away a bit of the imposter syndrome, I suppose. I think time's up, so thank you.